Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast Conversations and Connections. I'm your host, Sandy McGregor, and I am delighted to be here today because I have an excellent, dynamic couple here that is going to be sharing some incredible wisdom and insights into marriage. They are going to be giving us a marriage game plan, which is actually the title of their new book. And it is called the Marriage Game Plan, Developing a Winning Strategy for Marital Success. So today I have the Gregorys. I have George and Tondra Gregory here today to introduce to you this incredible couple who's doing so much for the Lord over all of these years. And I'm so happy that you have agreed to be here. So thank you for being here.
It's our
Thank you.
pleasure to be here. Thank you so
Yes.
much for having us.
Yes.
Yes. Even with the time change, we can make it work.
Yes, that's true.
That's right. That's
Can't be
right.
too early for you, right? No.
Not
Uh,
too early.
Perfect. Yeah.
It's a noon, so we're good.
Perfect. It's perfect. Well, I would love to just introduce both of you and give our listeners a little bit of insight. And then we're going to dive right into what this new book is all about that I'm super excited to be able to read come this summer. So, together, you've been married for over 30 years and you have two grown children. And you have founded this incredible ministry called Journey for Life. And I can't wait to get into that a little bit more, but it's all about helping mentoring and coach couples to have a really successful Christ-centered marriage. So I'm really excited to talk about that. You've led lots of different ministries at churches, specifically marriage ministries and pastoring on the East Coast, and now you're all on the West Coast, correct?
that's
That's
right.
right.
That's
Yes.
right.
And you have done something really unique with the combination of marriage and football, marriage and the NFL. So you have found yourselves in this position of being chaplains. And I just want to make sure I have it correct. The New York Jets and the Giants. And now you are with the Los Angeles Chargers from 2017, correct?
Mhm.
That's right. Yeah. And we helped with the Jets and the Giants. We weren't their official chaplains, but we
Okay,
did
great.
more marital support services, marriage counseling, dinner
Yeah,
date nights, and things of that nature. But
amazing.
since 2017, we've had our own team, the Los Angeles Chargers.
I love that so much. I wish I could just be on that the play, watching the plays happen, but then actually you talking to the couples. I'd love to be a fly on the wall because it must be just such a vibrant, fantastic ministry going on there with those football players and their wives and girlfriends, and so
Mhm.
exciting.
Yeah,
Yes.
we love it. We pray to and ask God, take our passion for you, which is, preaching and teaching the gospel,
Mm,
but also connect it with our passion for helping couples. And we can ask for a better platform
yeah.
to reach pro athletes or the most decimated demographics that need
Mm.
marriage.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah, that's amazing. Well, I love the fact that you both have such unique backgrounds that you're bringing to the playing field, so to speak, with you have your Master of Divinity degree, so you've been in pastoral role, George, and then
That's
Tondra,
right.
you have your Master's in counseling, and is it education as well? Master of counseling
It's
and
counselor education,
yeah,
master
yeah.
of counselor education.
So
Yeah.
what a perfect combination for a young couple to walk in and say, okay, we want to get married. What do we do? How do we do it? And you have this beautiful knowledge, all this background to share with them. What a gift for young couples. That's
Thank
exciting.
you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
well, I tell everybody, I've had my own therapist for 30 years, and and so I'm our biggest client, by the way.
That's perfect. I love it.
Yeah, and I believe it does mesh very well
Hmm.
together because it gives like a holistic view
Hmm.
of
Hmm.
marriage coming from the spiritual and professional side. We're able to integrate all of that to just
Hmm.
really help couples have a game plan to just build their
Hmm.
life off
Yeah,
of. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm really excited about your book, and I'm looking forward to reading it this summer when it comes out on July 1st.
Yes.
And I'm sure there's a whole backstory to how long you first thought about this book, how long you've been working on this book. It's a labor of love. I totally understand. But,
Yes. You
we
get
can't
us.
have enough marriage books out there because I really believe that one marriage book might resonate with one couple and another book might resonate with another. And we need so many Christ-centered resources out there to help the young people that are up and coming into the dating and courting engagement, early
Hmm.
married years, and then to meet a couple like you who are willing to just sit down with them and
Mhm.
say, all right, there's a game plan here. It's not
Sure.
enough to just get that ring on your finger. There's a lot more to go, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
Exactly.
Yes. And I was actually thinking of the verse in Genesis where it says, therefore a man shall leave his father and mother and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. And as I
Mhm.
was thinking about that verse, I was thinking about your ministry and how
Mhm.
you're helping people hold fast to one another in a
Hmm.
Mhm.
society that is pulling us apart at every single angle to be divisive, no unity, and it's okay. You go do your thing and don't do the hard work to work on this marriage because, come on, we'll get into it. Marriage is
Mhm.
Right.
hard.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, yeah.
Marriage
Right.
is,
Yeah. Marriage is tough. Marriage is hard, but it's worth it, right? And
Mm,
if you do it the right way, and that's where we learn. We
yes.
learn we're going to get into our
yeah,
story throughout the podcast here, but man, it doesn't matter where you are in your journey. You
yeah,
can make it in your marriage, but there's a lot for us. We had to learn to get a game plan, get on the
Mhm.
same page, call the
yeah.
same plays, and do what we knew that God was calling us to do.
Amazing. Well,
Absolutely.
let's do that. Let's get right into the book. I want to hear all about this book. So tell me about your hope, your heart behind this book, and why you think that we need a marriage game plan.
Yeah. Well, our hope and heart behind this book is to help couples get that marriage game planned.
Mm,
We hope that one of the things about our book is not just, you're not just going to be reading it as a couple, but
Mm.
we have activities at the end of each chapter. We have where you can develop skills that connect with the chapter's theme,
mm,
answer questions. We even have bonus videos, even for
so
more
good.
additional wisdom and insight on these particular chapters. But all the while that you're going through this book, you're building your marriage game plan. And chapter 10 is about you laying out
Yeah.
as a couple your marriage game plan to take away and continue to refer back to and adjust as needed as
Wow.
life happens ups and downs. But our
Mm,
hope is to give couples a marriage game plan.
that's amazing.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, it's to me, it is to help them to get a
Yeah.
game plan,
Mm,
but really, we read so many books or we go through classes, and really, it's expert knowledge that's given, and that's great. We need that, but we also need, and this is why I'm proud of our book, is that we help couples to subjectify it in the sense of there's nothing like you knowing your marriage, your relationship, and
Mhm.
yes.
so doing the what we call put it into practice
Yes.
sections or
Hmm.
listen to our timeout videos gives you as a couple your own way of answering those questions and you developing your very game plan because we don't know what your marriage is all about,
Yes.
but
Right.
you do. So you
Right.
might come to our counseling sessions and tell us, oh, we don't have any problems whatsoever, but only you know the things that you need to work on in your marriage.
It's
And
so
so
true.
it's a labor of love for us, and we're excited about it.
Yeah.
No, that's wonderful. So, would you recommend as a couple that you would just kind of read one chapter at a time? Like, what would be your recommendation as how to best go about the book? Just as a couple, would you encourage other couples or small groups, or what would you consider that for that
Yeah.
perspective?
I definitely think a couple taking their time. It's not
Mm,
about rushing through the content.
good.
It's about internalizing the
Mm,
content. It's about practicing the skill developments and putting things into
Mm.
practice. And so I definitely, it's not just about getting through the material. It's about what you're gaining as you're going through the material.
I love
So
that.
that's going through it as a couple or in a small group. I think
Mhm.
each just chewing on this material would just help you internalize it more. So
Right.
either way is fine, but I definitely think the couple getting their game plan together is the highest level of benefit from the book.
Yeah.
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 Yeah, I do like that concept. We did put a small group component in there, so
Okay.
it's a leader's guide if someone wants to lead some couples through it. But there's nothing like, kind of like on those cold days in Canada, right? Is when
Oh,
you can hunt
yes.
it down together
Yes,
and you can really like just sit in it
yes,
and get cozy to the material.
yeah.
Because again, like it's not about completing a book, it's really about connecting, it's really
Mhm.
about understanding that you are on the same team and it's
That's so
about
good.
going in the same direction. And one of our main points that we talk about is defining the win.
Mm,
What do you want your marriage to look like 50 or 60 years down the road? That's your win. That's the
Yes.
vision that you
right.
guys see together. But so many times in marriage, we lose sight of that vision, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
It's kind of like
Mhm.
we joke and we say, who wrote that movie? Why did I get married?
Oh, Chris Rock.
Chris Rock. But sometimes we ask, why do we get married? As much as
Yes.
we love each other, we all
Mhm.
kind of ask that question in different ways. But
Mm,
defining that win reminds you this is why we're married.
Mhm.
This is why we're sacrificing. This is the legacy that we're trying to create.
yeah.
And we just we feel like whether you're doing it in a small group, but a couple doing it together, committing to doing the investment time,
Hmm.
really will make a difference in your marriage.
Yeah. Yeah, we need a vision. And the Bible talks about how we need a vision or the people perish.
That's
Um,
right.
and I think a lot of young couples today are forgetting that component of the importance, first of all, of marriage counseling.
Yeah.
And the whole idea of looking ahead and planning ahead. And I think that's just a great foundation, such a good way to be successful. So I love
Mhm.
the whole concept of game plan because it automatically puts your mindset into, all right, I'm going to get right down to this. I'm going to write this down and you know, because you know, like you need the plays,
Yeah.
football plays, you got to have a plan. And
Yep.
every team has a plan. And I love how you keep commenting on the fact that marriage and you're a team. You're a
Yeah.
team.
Mhm.
And
That's
you're
right.
not
Absolutely.
against each other, you're for each other.
Right.
And
Exactly.
yes, I
Exactly.
love that apart your ministry, just the different things I've been listening that you've shared. I just love your focus on
Yes.
team. Yeah.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Team makes the dream work, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as you said, Canada's pretty cold for a very long time. So we can go through this book and take a lot of time getting cozy and putting on the fire.
Yeah.
So, but I'll definitely be using this as a summer giveaway. I'm going to have a little marriage bundle. So once I can get the book in my hands, it'll be fun to get that out for another couple to be able to read and enjoy. So looking forward
Awesome.
to it.
Great.
That would
That's
be awesome.
wonderful.
Yeah, yeah. So let's go back a little bit about each of you and your individual faith journeys because we each have a story, and it's always so beautiful when people hear your journey to faith and how you came to know the Lord. It's such an inspiration. And there might be somebody listening today that's, first of all, didn't know who you guys were, and now they're inspired and they need to know how did you guys come to know the Lord and what is making you do what you do? So, Tondra, why don't we start with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So I didn't grow up in a Christian home. Well, I like to say we were CEO Christians, which stands for Christmas and Easter only Christians, right? So,
That's
but
good.
about, having a relationship with God and really dedicating your life to Him, that wasn't totally instilled in me growing up.
Mhm.
So I was still living my life for me and what I thought was enjoying and living your best
Mhm.
life, which came from a worldly understanding of what living your life looks like, right? And
Right.
uh so I had come to the end of myself and was just like, by the time I was in my sophomore year of college, I was just like, is this all there is to life?
Mhm.
I'm
Wow.
over it already. And then you just live like this until you die. This is like,
Wow.
it feels so empty, so meaningless, so hopeless. And so then I started kind of seeking, well, what is the purpose and meaning of life?
Mm-hmm.
Which led me to God and George. He was a friend of mine at the time, and he is the one that introduced me to the scriptures and having a relationship with God.
Mm,
And he just led me to the Lord, and I have just been on fire since because I just never knew that God is alive still
mm.
today, and He can live inside of you, and He
Mhm.
can walk. You
Amen.
can have a relationship with Him, and you can walk with Him. And He just really, this relationship just changed the trajectory of my life,
Yeah.
honestly. I
Yeah.
wouldn't be the woman that I am today where I am had I not got on this road with
Mhm.
the Lord. I know I wouldn't.
Yeah. Well, it's amazing because look at what the Lord has done through you and how you get to constantly bring out this gift of look what God has done in my life and look what he can do
Mhm.
for you. It's not just for me. This is for you. And your marriage can be different, parenting can be different, workplace can be different. I mean, it's all encompassing. So that's why I just love hearing faith stories because they're each unique and different and the handprint of God is on it. So thank you for sharing that. I love that.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah. How about you,
Yeah,
George?
and I grew up in a home where my dad and mom married, and my dad is a pastor for 52 years
Wow.
before he passed away in 2020. And
Hmm.
so church was a regular part of what we did. And I wish I could say that I was into church. I was more of an actor, right? So I knew the right lines to say. I knew how to act in church, but there
Right.
was a different side of me when I came home.
Hmm.
And I hear that story quite frequently, by the
Yeah.
way. But yeah, in college, as Tondra said, we both had an encounter with the Lord. I just had mine first,
Mhm.
Yeah.
and I was in a dark place as well, and I
Hmm.
was in such a dark place that Saint Augustine's Confessions says something to the effect that he was running from the Lord and he could hear like a clanking chain, or like he was running, and he heard this chain behind him, because you can't outrun God, right? And that was my story. I was drowning myself in partying and, getting drunk and just really living a riotous a lifestyle.
Yeah.
And I found myself trying to drown the voice of God out and that
Right.
chain by going to the
Right.
club one night, and I got really wasted, and my friends, as a trick, they took me back home and they just pushed me into my room.
Wow.
And I stayed in a boarding home, so they just pushed me into my room so that I could get away from them. And literally, I walked in my room
Mm.
and I fell to my knees because I knew that the Lord Jesus was waiting on me in my room. So, as much of an actor as I
Wow.
was, I had an encounter
Right.
with God, and it was as if He was there waiting for me. And I
Mhm.
said the sinner's prayer right there on my knees. And I woke up the next morning. I was still on my knees because I had passed out. And yet the miraculous power of Jesus to interrupt your life, no matter what you're trying to do to drown him out, he will reach you. And
Yeah.
I called my dad. Well, my dad was on his way to see me, and
Wow.
I get in the car with my dad, and I'm excited. I'm telling him, "Hey, Pop, guess what I did last
Yeah.
night? I gave my life to Jesus." I didn't tell him about it. I was drunk, but I gave my life to Jesus, and he just burst into tears. And I'm thinking, shouldn't you be
That's
happy? Shouldn't you be
yeah.
excited? And
Yeah.
he said, I am. He says, you don't understand. For 365 days, today's the 365th day. I've been praying for you for one solid year for you to come to yourself like a
Wow.
son. And that's my story, is I was trying to outrun God's love, his calling. I was looking for love in all the wrong places
Mhm.
and faces,
Hmm.
and yet he found me, and that's my story.
Wow, that is amazing. And I love the concept of interruption, how it's this godly, miraculous interruption and totally divine. He knew this ahead of time. He is sovereign over all, and he knew this is exactly the moment to meet you in that boardroom and when you were on your knees. And that was the moment. And what's beautiful about the way you share both of your stories is that when you are sharing with other couples or football players, it's real, it's honest, it's relatable, and they're like, whoa, that sounds like me. And I mean, there's so many parts of our stories that we're hesitant to share, and sometimes the Lord doesn't want us to share everything.
Yeah.
However, I believe that what you can share, that God leads you to share, is going to be so impactful. And it's hard. I mean, I'm sure sharing your story at first was not easy.
Well, to me, it's always been actually it's been easy, because I just felt like, so once I came to this full knowledge of God's love, right? I
Mm,
had been around it for so long. I
yeah.
really felt compelled to share. Like, our
Mm,
story is that we heard, both of us at the same, in the same season, we heard and we had to tell. So we went around our college campus talking about Jesus and proclaiming his love, and immediately started a Bible study that,
Yeah.
yeah.
like, literally, we started a Bible study in my home, in the boarding home, and we went to a college. We went to you know we went to the campus
Yes.
and had the smallest room.
Uh-huh.
And before we were finished, or before God was finished with us, it grew to the largest auditorium on campus.
Wow.
So for us, it's always been about experiencing God's love, but going to tell
Yeah.
people so that they could experience God's love.
Oh, that's wonderful. That's so
Yeah.
great. So when you look back now, because it's 30 years you've been married. So if
Yes.
you guys go back to those beginning years, I mean, I'm just kind of making a guess here, but you may not have had the same experiences that people are having with you as far as marital counseling or advice or whatever. But if you look back at your early years, and I'm sure there's people that are watching today that are maybe in their early years of marriage or thinking of marriage or engagement, but um, what struggles did you feel like you really experienced in those early years of marriage that really the Lord worked through in your life and set you on this path to marriage ministry?
Mhm. I definitely know, like in the beginning, because we came from such different backgrounds.
Mm.
I was raised by a single mom, and I was raised by two strong Black independent women,
Strong.
because they had to be. There were no men in our lives to bear the weight or shoulder the weight. So you had to be strong. And so I was raised watching that. That's what it meant to be a woman, to be independent and self-sufficient and strong. And so that's all I knew. And then George came from a different background where he saw women in a different way. Like,
well, I didn't see
not
women in a
anyway. I'm
different way.
sorry.
It's my dad. My dad,
Okay.
being in a two-parent home, my dad was just more the dominant voice. He was the leader. He was, and my mother, she was comfortable in letting him take the lead. And so I saw the world from, hey, the man takes the lead. Tondra saw the world through, hey, the
Right.
women have the dominant voice. And so when we got married, the question was, who's in charge?
A little bit of a battle.
Right. Oh no, it was
It
like
was a
World
big
War
battle.
III. That's what it was. It was World War III.
Yeah, we were both fighting for that dominance
Right.
in the relationship. So
In fact, I called my dad one day. I literally called him and I said, "Man, you got to help me." He says, "What's the matter, son?" I says, "Man, she's broken. She doesn't do anything like mom does. Like it's always word for word. And why do we have to do this?" And we just, again, it's like marriage is so tough that you never really know someone until you get married. You live with them, and
Right.
it's puppy love until you really say I do and you're committed.
Yeah.
But we struggle with that. I think not only that, but we're different. So not only our backgrounds were our backgrounds different, but how we viewed a lot of things, namely time, right? Time, how we saw time.
Like being places on time and how we managed our time. We lived on a different clock.
Oh yeah.
Both of us lived on a
Oh
different
yeah. And this was big. I bring it up because it almost made us get a divorce. Like literally that four little word was such a test in our marriage, right? Tondra, she thought that, well, I'll tell you mine. My dad taught me being on time was being 15 minutes early. Right.
And I grew up where people expected you to be fashionably late, right? Like there was a grace period.
Did you say expected?
There was a grace period that everybody knows about and was operating on that grace, 15 minutes of grace period. And so small things like that can become huge.
Oh yeah.
Over time, if you don't try to get to the bottom of it.
Yes.
Sure, but it worked itself out where, like me being a pastor then, and this was old school church where we processed in with the choir like the pastor did. And so I would tell my wife, listen, I can't come in 15 minutes late because the choir is already in choir stand. Everybody's waiting on me. So this really was a
big deal.
And for me, I grew up in a home where we could kind of say what we wanted to say. Everybody knew they didn't wear their heart on their sleeve. And yet, man, I was just so like focused on why can't we get this right? And I was kind of like this driver of, we got to do this, and we got a bad marriage. And if I could go back and say to myself, my younger self, I would probably say, just don't take everything so serious.
That's
right?
good.
No, you don't have to perfect everything, and you don't have to get everything right and share grace. There's a saying that Tondra and I have about ourselves, by the way. And we say we're pictures of God's grace.
That's great.
And it's not because we started out that way. It's because we really had such a tough time when we first started off in marriage. Is that for us to be doing marriage at the level we're doing it, in pro sports, we do it on some of the largest stages in America. That we found it funny that God has called us to do this when we started off so bad. So we'd like to tell people that we're pictures of God's grace. And if we can do it, anybody can do it.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. But that's a great place to be because it helps us all kind of be at that same level that we're all struggling. We're all messes and we all make mistakes in marriage and life. And for you to share in honesty, your mistakes and the struggles that you had, it helps people go and relate to you and just say, well, that's where we're at. So what did you guys do and how did you get there? And then with your book, and then you have that other resource, that you wrote, it's more of like the study group one.
Oh, the 5 purposes.
The 5 purposes. Yeah. So I've been kind of looking at that one and it's really great. I love that. We can talk about that in a minute, but I think it's really special what you were doing. And I love how you were called into this ministry unexpectedly, of course. That's not necessarily what you had planned. But,
Yeah.
can you share a little bit, two things, how you got into the chaplaincy, how that started for you? I think it was initially on the East Coast, and then your ministry journey for life. I would love to talk a little bit about that journey of life. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really kind of one and the same. So our heart was never together like do marriage ministry together. It was Tondra was going back to school. She
Yeah.
was going to be a professional counselor and so she did that. And her first assignment for me as one of the senior level pastors in our church was, can you start a class
Hmm.
that would take the start a pre-marriage class that would be led by lay leaders in our congregation to take the weight off senior leaders, where we didn't have to sit down for 8 to 10 weeks with a couple, but we could come in and kind of do the heavy lifting in
Hmm.
about 2 to 3 weeks. And
Hmm.
she did such a great job with
Hmm.
that book now, with that resource. Now that was in North Carolina, and so as soon as we moved to New York City to start a church, we planted a church on the Upper East Side of Manhattan, and we didn't want to be in the four walls, the four walls of the church. So our outreach strategy was to talk to and to challenge New York couples that were living together because they said they wanted to save in rent,
Right.
money in rent. They wanted to just live together and
Yeah.
still have benefits of marriage, but not being married. And
Right.
so we just challenged hundreds of couples to come through our pre-marriage class,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And we saw so many great things that we decided after that to start uh to start our own brand of marriage ministry
Yes.
called Journey for Life.
Yeah.
We just got that one day. Marriage is a journey. It should be for
Hmm.
life.
Hmm.
And we created a website, and the first company, if you will, to reach out to us was the New York Jets.
Wow.
And they
That's so
saw
great.
our website, and we knew the chaplain there. We were co-pastoring with one of the with the chaplain
Yeah.
in our church. We were co-pastoring with him, but he called and said, "Man, the Jets would love for you guys to come and help us with some marriage resources." And so what we
Hmm.
did was we just simply served. So people ask me all the time, "How did you become the chaplain?" I say, "Really, I just became the hands and feet of Jesus
Right.
to professional athletes. We
Yep.
did." By helping them. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care.
Yep.
And so we started caring for them,
Yeah.
training them, or when I say training them, I mean mentoring them in
Hmm.
pre-marriage counseling or marriage counseling, or
Yep.
throwing fun dinner date nights where we would have these big brolic players
Yeah.
dancing. We would bring in an instructor from our congregation, and they would teach them the wall tour,
Oh, that's so fun.
the salsa dance. And their wives, when they saw the guys were so into it, I
Yeah.
mean, they got into it. And
Yeah.
so this thing about how, working together
Yes.
and being
Yeah.
teammates, all of that, all those ideas started crystallizing as far as seeing couples come alive and doing stuff together. And so that's
Mhm.
Yeah.
that's kind of what we did with the Jets. And then the Giants, they heard about what we were doing.
Mhm.
And we got a call from, I think it was Charles Way then. And he says, listen, it's not fair that you guys are doing that for the other team in New York. And so
They
we
have an
went,
advantage.
yeah, we went to help those guys out over there. And so we
Yeah.
we found it a privilege
Yeah.
because
Hmm.
again, our passion was when we moved to New York City is not just to plant a church, but to
Hmm.
do outreach, and so
Yeah.
that people from outside of the church could know about Jesus. And this outreach, we didn't even know that it was going to take on its own life for
Right.
almost 15 to 16 years now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing. I'm thinking about these athletes. They're in such a unique position because literally they have their lives are on film, on camera, on the news, and marriage together, marriage not together. And it's that stress alone, let alone being a player. So you add everything together, and then you're going to have all this tension in your marriage. And I'm sure, I didn't actually prepare you for this, but I wondered if you did have a story that you could share. Of just something that happened in one of these chaplain moments in one of these teams that really was an inspiration for you, where a player just was really courageous and they stepped forward and said they need help. Do you have like a little story you could share with us today?
Yeah, I mean, there's many stories we could tell. We obviously can't share names,
No, don't
but
share names, just the idea of it. Yeah.
really, I think it's so in our marriage ministry, we often say, "Don't die in a sea of lifeguards," right? And there's so much help out there for couples, but a lot
Mhm.
of people won't raise their hand because they're afraid. And when
Yeah.
you don't raise your hand and you're drowning, I mean, you
Mhm.
can really die.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
so to when we throw this quote or statistic out, that in the NFL, they say after retirement, it's a 70% divorce rate.
Really?
And eyes start going
Wow.
really wide, really
Yeah.
big. And
Hmm.
because one is they don't know that statistic, but
Hmm.
two is they start to immediately think, well, I'm not in that 70%.
Yeah.
And so I then we ask the question, is how many of you think you're going to be in that 70%? No one raises their hand. And so we say, then you have to be proactive
Hmm.
now
Hmm.
and don't be reactive later, right? And so just to see what happens after that couple's talk
Mhm.
is couples are always coming up saying,
Hmm.
we need to see you guys. We
Mhm.
need, because they know deep down inside, there's something happening. They need a mentor, they need a coach,
Hmm.
they need someone to walk alongside
Mhm.
of them because
Yeah.
they know in order to become at an elite level, that they've had to have coaches in their life. And so with us being marriage coaches, they immediately invite us in. And man, the
Wow.
stories are countless of
Yeah.
times that we've gone in and just little tweaks, or sometimes some big lifting. Man,
Mhm.
couples can come back and just say, man, thank you guys for really diving deep with us
Yeah.
and showing us that we weren't too far off. We just had to be reminded what's our win,
Yeah.
what's our playbook,
Yeah.
what's the plays that we need to
Yeah.
run together. And if you get a good coach like that, I think we can make marriage a big transformation in this world.
Hmm. Yeah, absolutely. What would you say about the wives that are, Tondra, that you get to have the opportunity to speak with? How do you feel they respond to somebody just actually saying, I am with you.
Yeah.
You're not
I
alone.
think it's a great missional field
Mm-hmm.
because they are living sort of like a nomadic lifestyle,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's
Mm-hmm.
hard to build relationships and community. Um, in the NFL, it's
Yeah.
a lot of competition. You don't know who to trust,
Mhm.
who's really there for you, who's really trying to benefit from you. So having a trusted voice and a safe space, I
Yeah.
like to create that for the ladies to build friendships, build community
Mm.
that lives way beyond their time in the
Right.
NFL.
Right.
So me providing these studies of us growing together spiritually,
Mhm.
growing together relationally, because it's a shared experience. Unless you're in
Right.
this world, you don't know what it's like to be in this world. A lot of people have their own
Mhm.
assumptions and
Right.
opinions about what their life should be, but they don't, no one really, there's no one that they can really understand. And so I get to provide an environment where there's understanding, mutual understanding. We're living this life together. We get it. People don't outside don't get it. And just, it just feels good to be understood.
Yeah.
Um, and it's been so refreshing for me. So we have served in the church for so many years before we went into
Mhm.
the NFL and
Right.
worked officially in the NFL here. But it's so refreshing because I feel like inside the church, we have all of this Bible study and small
Yes.
groups and relationships
Yeah.
that we're having.
Yeah.
People praying for us and reading the scripture. But what's so refreshing, like, there are young ladies that come to my Bible study. They're coming because they just need friendship and they need a safe place.
Yes.
Never had anyone pray for them. They've never read a scripture.
Hmm.
And, just to be there for their first moments that I feel like we take for granted inside the church,
It's true.
people are like, wow, thank you for praying for me. I've
Yeah.
never had anyone pray for me before. Wow, I really understand this scripture. I never
Yeah.
even read a scripture or opened a
Yeah.
Bible.
Yeah.
And I tell you, I'm being poured into just from being able to introduce some aspects that you wouldn't think people have, you might think people have had and they
Yes.
haven't. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I'll say this really quick. So last season, my wife, she must have said this phrase so much. And the phrase was the Bible, the acronym is basic instructions before leaving Earth. That the ladies in the Bible study got her two coffee mugs that say basic
Really?
instructions before leaving
That's
Earth.
so great.
And
I
again,
love
it's
it.
just like it's like that was life to them because they never kind of looked at that like that. But man, just the little things that when we model, I think that's
Yeah.
what Christ is asking us to do is to
Yes.
let our light so shine before others that they
Mhm.
may see our good works and glorify God, which is in
Right.
heaven. That made such an impact that we
Wow.
get DMs about basic instructions before leaving Earth.
I'm never going to forget that now. Every time I think about the Bible, I love that. That's great. I'm going to have to write that down. Oh, that's good. Well, in your book, The Marriage Game Plan, I love this one particular concept, and I wondered if you could expand on it a little bit. It's the impact there on family and community, and it includes how you believe that there's a ripple effect. And I would love for you to talk about that whole concept in this book so people have a little bit of a nugget of information of what's to come when they get to this book. But this one really jumped out at me when I was looking at it. So, what would you say is the ripple effect to the whole concept of actually having a marriage plan and then implementing it? And what does a ripple effect mean?
Yeah, well, I go back again to that last point when Christ asked us to let our light shine before others so they may see our good works.
Yeah.
When we have a good marriage, right? When we understand how to develop a game plan, when we understand defining that win and having a
Yeah.
picture of where we want to go, what we realize is that if we're doing it the right way, we didn't make it up,
Yeah.
right? And so, like for instance, in chapter 2, I spent a lot of time dealing with let's go back to the owner's manual. Let's don't make up how to do marriage. Let's go back to the designer, which is God, through
Yeah.
his owner's manual, which is the word. And we look at
Yeah.
that not just as the owner's manual, but we call it the playbook, God's
Mhm.
playbook on
Mhm.
marriage, and go back to a few of those purposes, right, of why he created marriage. And
Yeah.
one of those, we'll give your audience one of those today, right? They'll have to buy the book to do the other
Have to
three.
get the book.
But one of those is to reflect God's image, right?
Mm.
And so marriage done right, when we are doing the game plan, that's what we call it.
Mhm.
It reflects God's image to the world, right? And that's the ripple effect.
Yeah.
When people see us, how we love each other, how we
Mhm.
respond to each other, how we treat each other. I couldn't do that for Tondra in a godly way without God, without Jesus, his example. And so the ripple effect for me is it's not just about my marital satisfaction, but when I treat Tondra like Christ loved the
Mm.
church, when she respects me, when she honors me, when we have
Yeah.
a good marriage, it's reflected to the community around us.
Yes.
And broken marriages or the community that sees us and they say, wait, how did y'all do that? Y'all started off so bad, but now there's
Yeah.
a transformation. That's that ripple effect, is because when we learn to do it right, we reflect God's image to
Mm.
the. Why don't you tell them?
Yeah, I was gonna add
Okay,
to
go.
that, because God could have chose any vehicle to pass on his character and his nature, his legacy through, but he chose the family
Mm.
to pass on his character and
Yes.
nature and legacy
Yeah.
through, right?
Yeah.
And so that's why I believe there is such an attack on the family,
I
because
agree.
it wants to distort the character and nature of
Yeah.
God and pass on a broken
Right.
legacy
Mm-hmm.
generation to generation.
And just
Yeah, go
interrupt
ahead.
real quick. So we say that he chose the family because he says to be fruitful, multiply, fill the earth to do it. So he's given us these things, and then he tells us along the way, tell them about me,
Yeah.
which is going to bring this transformation.
Yes,
So that's how he.
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Because that's how we know who we are, is in the family that we grow up in. I like to say it's like a greenhouse
Mm.
for everything on God's nature and legacy, because living our marriage in a biblical way is designed to help our kids know who they are, know what they're
Right.
worth, to know who God is,
Yeah.
the way we love each other, the way we forgive each other, the way we die like to our flesh for each other, die to pride and
Yeah.
selfishness and serve one another. All of that is really passing on the nature and character into our kids,
It
which
is.
creates that safe environment for
Yeah.
them to go and now build that same thing in their kids. And this is how it's passed on from generation to generation. So there is a ripple effect. Your marriage is not just about your happiness. Your marriage is about the legacy of God going for generation to generation.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. That is so beautiful. I love that the depth of the legacy that you have created and that your desire is for other couples and other families to do the same thing. And I was talking about with my daughter actually this morning, just why we believe what we believe and why we do what we do. And so it's like you're living it out. You don't even have to say anything. They're watching and then they come to you and say, why? Like, what is going on? And then you have this beautiful opportunity to say, you know what? It's because Jesus changed my life. And because he changed my life, he's changed my marriage. And now he's changed my parenting and he's changed everything about it. So thank you so much for just the willingness you are just to be so full of ministry in your heart for couples. And there's probably couples that are watching right now. And just as we finish off today, what kind of encouragement would you say to a couple that really is struggling, trying to find their grounding? And what would be kind of one last advice that you could share with them today?
I would say it doesn't matter where you start or where you are, you get to decide where you're going and how you finish. So there is hope for your marriage. Listen, we should not even be here talking about marriage because we were in such a bad place. But if you can just go do the work, learn how to be married, that's not something that you just know how to do. That's something you have to learn how to do. A lot of people think, oh, if we get married and we love each other, that's enough. No, you have to begin to roll up your sleeves and learn how to do this. Marriage is one of the most important institutions you'll ever be a part of. And like anything that you want to be successful at, you get mentorship, you get coaching, you get educated, practice, right? If you want to be good at anything, no less effort is required for marriage.
Absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and just practical. I go back to the sports theme. By the way, we this book it's on marriage, but we use sports concepts or analogies to undergird the marriage principles that we talk about. So I'm going to do one of those principles and say I would say, man, you can do anything when you have the right coach in your life, right? And so part of us was when we learned to say we need help, right? Can you help me get better to not tell me what I'm doing wrong, but tell me what I could do better to honor Tondra or to love Tondra. And so getting that right coach. And there's one thing that I'm really proud of is that outside of the book, that what we're going to start creating is we're going to do our own podcast like you.
Oh, that's great.
Some inspiration to do that. But then we're going to do some online coaching groups.
That's great.
As well, because again, like I think we all know of couples who don't make it or didn't make it, but sometimes we don't know where to go to get around couples who are making it or who are thriving in our marriage. And we're not trying to say that all marriages are bad. We just know that there's a ton of people that we've spoken to that probably had they raised their hand earlier, their marriage would look a lot better. And so get the right coach. That's what I would say.
I love that. That's amazing. Well, thank you, Tondra, and thank you, George, so much for your time, for your insights and your wisdom. I can't wait to get my hands on this book, The Marriage Game Plan, and I can't wait to have the giveaway so that other people can enjoy it as well. So make sure that you pre-order your copies, and it comes out July 1st. And I will put all of the information so that they can check out your website and your ministry and follow along on your marriage journey and your mentoring and your coaching. So thank you so much for being here today. It was a delight.
Thank you,
Sandy.
We really enjoyed ourselves.
Yes.
Well, that's great. Well, thanks. We'll look forward to talking to you soon.